Hey, welcome back to Wicked Smart Golf, aka Wicked Smat. This is your host, Michael Leonard, and this podcast is committed to helping you play better golf without changing your swing. But we're going to make a little change today because we've been promoting the Better Golf Without Swing Changes for a long time. And obviously, you're going to stick with it because that is not my specialty. But I brought in an expert who definitely can help us out. Bryce, thanks so much for being back on Wicked Smart Golf Part 2 today, man.
I'm pumped to be back, man. I know it's a change of pace for you from typically not doing swing changes, usually a lot of course management and mental strategy. But it's crazy. It's been 2 years since our last one, but happy to be back.
Thanks, man. It's been cool. For those of you that didn't tune in 2023, we've had a massive growth since then. And why don't you give us a little background about yourself? Because your story is super inspiring. You're not like a traditional kind of golf coach, been in the industry your whole life. So how'd you kind of get here before we fix some of the most common issues?
Yeah, I will try to keep it semi-brief, but I played golf pretty much my entire life. Played competitively as a junior, got a little fried, did not end up playing in college, and went to Old Dominion University in Norfolk, studied biology, became a physician assistant, started working as a PA in orthopedic surgery at a children's hospital here, doing a lot of sports med. And it was actually during COVID, wife convinced me to download TikTok, started seeing a bunch of golf instructional videos. And I didn't have a coaching background back then. This was what, 4 years ago at this point. And just out of boredom, got a tripod, started posting some drills and things that I learned kind of through the process of playing. And that led to people wanting to get lessons. And I had no business coaching back then. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to get a little better at it. So started hiring mentors, started learning as much as I could. And over the last 4 years, just have kind of grown the knowledge base. And that has led to doing a little over 3,700 online lessons and a couple hundred in person every year and building out the two facilities that I have in Virginia Beach. And yeah, and then the social media stuff is kind of the side stuff just to kind of get some instructional information out there and starting to do a little bit more playing stuff on YouTube and things like that. So I was trying to dip my toes into everything.
I was gonna say, being pretty modest, I think you got like over 400,000 followers out there. So your
Crazy.
stuff is so great, and that's what connected us, man. Like that's why I saw everybody doing the swing stuff, and that's kind of why I went this direction with Wicked Smart because I don't know enough about the swing, and even when I do, people are like, "What are you doing when you're shooting in the 60s or playing well?" I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm not thinking about my golf swing, so like I've never been able to communicate it. So that's why it attracted me back to wanting to have you on because I honestly like not no BS. I think you break down the swing, which is super complex in very, very simple ways. Like your TikTok videos, I like screen record them. I'm like, okay, if I feel like this is something I'm going to need to remember in the future. So good job in that sense. Is there something you feel like you try to do to like, I don't want to say dumb it down, but simplify it because golf is so complex?
For sure, I appreciate it. I think the medical background helped honestly, because I mean that's
Mm.
pretty much all they taught us to do for through the entire program was like take these really complex things and break them down to kind of layman's terms to make it so
Hmm.
somebody can understand. And I think I kind of just tried to apply the same thing where I try to avoid using anatomical terms a lot of the times where I'm like, if I get up there and start talking about lead wrist flexion and supination, people are going to be like, I don't know what this means.
I
But if
was
I
just going
say,
to say, if I hear the word supination, my mind just shuts down.
exactly, and you're a great player. You're a plus handicap, so you can imagine when an 18 handicap hears that with no medical background. So I try to keep it super simple, just avoid like avoid the anatomical terms and try to make it very easy to follow. From like, if you do this, it causes this. This is how to fix it, and kind of lay out kind of like this is your issue, and this is what it causes, and this is how to solve it, type of thing.
I love it, man. Well, that's great, and we appreciate you being able to simplify it because there's just so much going on in this game. I just realized you have to learn how to swing, then you have to learn how to play short game, putting. Like there's just so much stuff out there. So if we can simplify it, I think that helps. So we're gonna go over some of the most common things today that me and you kind of talked about. We'll show some of your videos. If you guys aren't watching on YouTube, highly recommend you check out the YouTube version because we're gonna go through some of his most popular videos and most common issues. But even before that, I want to know 3,700, I think you said, online lessons. What would you say is the biggest mistake that you've seen, like number one trend throughout those nearly 4,000 swings?
I would say, and this is a little bit of foreshadowing for something I think we will get to, but I think players like to focus more so on the issue that they're seeing versus the root cause. So like early
Mhm.
extension is a great one where everyone's like, I just need to stop coming out of my posture. It's like, well, that's actually helping you. You're probably doing that because you're doing something else wrong. Or I can't stop scooping into impact. It's like, well, you're probably scooping to help you square the face up because the face is open like earlier in the swing. So I think it's just kind of misdiagnosing or self-diagnosing certain issues. And then yeah, like we'll run through a bunch of these common ones that I see mechanically.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The early extension one's gonna be fun. Let's start with setup because it's amazing how many people don't use alignment sticks. Have just they make the swing so much harder on themselves. And again, I've been guilty of this. I think we all have at some point or another. So, what are some like common setup things that you see? And then we'll pull up your video here where we're talking a little bit about how your feet are limiting your turn. I thought that was really, really impressive because it's just like the smallest things can make such a big difference.
Yeah, so the you kind of hit the nail on the head with alignment sticks. That is huge. Or I cannot tell you how many online lessons, especially that I get, where someone's like, "Man, I can't stop swinging over the top," and you look, and their feet and their shoulders are lined 40 yards right at the target, and they're just swinging massively over the top so they can swing towards the target. And as
Yep.
soon as you aim them left, they feel like they have the freedom to swing from the inside. So alignment is a massive one, and then posture is going to be the other big one. So we'll get to the feet, like you mentioned, for sure. But I see so many players that kind of get kind of squatty back into the heels and get the
Hmm.
upper body very upright to the point where they can't rotate effectively. Players will, again, the feet are going to be big limiters. So I think that's a good kind of segue into that video. So the toe flare is a huge one. So I see a lot of players get the feet kind of turned in too much, which is going to
Hmm.
limit the way that the hips can move. Getting the stance overly wide or overly narrow can kind of throw you off balance a little bit
What
and keep
about
you
the
from
toe
shifting.
flare specifically too, just to kind of dial that in? Because I feel like most
Yeah.
people are kind of like straight, like straight on. So you want both of them? Is it more left, more right? Does it change with wedges, irons, woods? What's kind of the main thing you see?
Yeah, so I would say as far as full swing goes, I like to see it be fairly consistent through the bag. As far as the amount of flare goes, and I like to see it touch more on the front than the back in most
Okay.
cases. Um, Everyone is going to be a little different. I usually will tell players about an inch on the back foot, about 2 inches on the front foot at most,
Okay.
somewhere in there. If you get somebody that's really limited with their hip rotation, you can add a touch more if you want to. But I find when players get that back foot flared too much, it's hard to almost push off of the foot and rotate. But I find that when players almost flare the feet there, that back foot too much, it doesn't really give you any leverage to push off of. Almost imagine
Mm.
if you're going to throw a pitch in baseball and you turned your toe 90 degrees in the opposite direction from the hitter, it's going to be very hard to push off in that direction. So I will see that excessive flare give players some trouble.
What does the front one do? What does that help with?
So I like that one just to help the hips open up a little bit. So I'll see players that will get that foot toed in a little bit, kind of
Hmm.
jams up the hip. Once the hip stops, the upper body stops, and that is where you run into issues. So that
Okay.
front foot being flared can kind of help players move through impact a little bit easier, in my opinion.
That makes sense. Okay, I was gonna say yeah, because I feel like it's all connected, right? Like what the toes do, the hips might not be able to do or might do too much. And then you kind of talked about in the video here. I'm just watching it again. You mentioned the width. So like how do you? I know everyone's a little bit different, but like, do you have a rule of like, hey, when I hit driver, I try to go wider than shoulders. When I hit irons, it's shoulder width. You kind of have like a barometer.
Yeah, so I always measure off the inside of the heels because if you have your toes straight and you measure off the inside of the heels, the stance will look very narrow. But if all of a sudden I start to flare the toes, that stance looks very wide, but the heels haven't moved. The heels are always
Mm,
going to be pretty consistent, so that's where toe flare can kind of fake it a little bit. But in general, I like when we're working with wedges and short irons, inside of the heels to be about hip joint width apart. So that's going to be, we'll call it middle thigh, basically, to keep it
hmm.
simple. Once you start getting into those more mid to long irons, I like to go inside of heels about hip width apart, and then woods and driver are close to shoulder width apart in that vicinity.
Hmm.
That's just kind of a quick guide to get you in the ballpark. Of course, everyone's a little different anatomically, but yes, wedges will be more narrow than driver. It will usually gradually widen as you go up through that bag.
Yeah, I mean, they always say power comes from the ground up, right? So I feel like if you get your feet in a good spot there, like you mentioned, I feel like that helps a lot because if you're too narrow, you're not going to be able to do it, or you might be promoting sway. Like, what is this? Do you find sway comes from a certain type of stance?
Yes, I will find that when players get overly wide, they have issues rotating. So that's where they will tend to be a little bit more of a sway. And when they get overly narrow, they can rotate easy, but that base is so narrow, you can't really transfer weight appropriately. So that's where I'll see players get off balance or kind of turn and get stuck on the back foot a little bit.
Mm.
So yeah, you definitely want to find that happy medium.
Okay, that makes sense. So we got a good setup with the feet. You also mentioned posture a little bit, and I recently did an online lesson with you, and my posture was terrible. 27 years in, one day I'll figure it out. So talk to me a little bit about posture, standing too flat or too upright, and kind of what is the ideal plane.
Yeah, so ideally, I like to see weight in the balls of the feet, not getting too back into the heels. So I'll see there's kind of an old saying like you want to sit on a stool when you're setting up, which I do not like because everybody, as soon as they do that, they stick the butt way out, they get the
Hmm.
heels back, and then you get very crunched over. And this will we can talk about this with early extension a little bit. But if you're a player and you get set into a position where you're squatty in the knees and the butt is back, you don't really have anywhere to go but forward. You've already gotten set so far back in this position.
Hmm.
So that is going to be the biggest one where it's sort of hips back, overly bent in the knees, very upright with the upper body. So I do prefer to see players get those knees just very minimally flexed, hips very slightly back. And when you hinge down, ideally looking to see those armpits kind of fall right down the front of the knees, not kind of get way back behind us here as you start squatting too much.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that's pretty good with I feel like setup. I feel like you said, if you're using alignment sticks, if you're making sure that your feet are good and your posture's good, you're kind of like I had Jason Bale, who coaches Lucas Glover on a couple
Mhm.
months or maybe like a month ago. He said to have like a home based practice session. Like that's what the guys do on the tour every Monday. They're just doing like fundamentals like that. So is that kind of what you'd recommend with the fundamentals, the stance, alignment, anything else?
100%. Yeah, stance alignment. Grip is tricky because there's neutral, but you see a lot of deviation with grip. I mean, you see a lot
Hmm.
of deviation with every player with setup and everything.
Hmm.
Um, but grip, alignment, and posture are going to be three of the big ones to make sure that
Hmm.
we aren't getting too far off.
Perfect. Okay, cool. That's good. I feel like if guys just listen to that and stop this podcast right now, they would have so
For
many
sure.
better habits, right? It's just those habits and they stack up. And what about recording your swing before getting into the next one? Like, I feel like n not enough people do it. Like I was doing a lesson or I was playing with one of my mental coaching students and we were out there and I was like showed him my iRange sports stick and I was like, hey, get one of these. And he's like, oh, I'd be so embarrassed about that. I'm like, oh, like he's like people at my club would make fun of me. I'm like, I'm making fun of them for not using one. So what would you say to people about like recording so that way you can catch your own bad habits?
Yeah, 100%. I would say there's a fine line between over recording too much, where I
Totally.
get players that record every single swing and get overly analytical.
Yeah.
Or it's like if you're hitting the ball well, I think it's good to take a video to kind of have as a baseline. So if you ever get far off of it, you know that this was a good swing you can go back to.
Hmm.
But I also do recommend recording at least some swings each session just to kind of have record of it to see, again, like I said, to know what you're doing well and what you're doing
Hmm.
poorly. Like you probably saw when we did a lesson a couple weeks ago, it's like you go back and you look and it's like as soon as you record it, you see the posture. It's like you had the real versus feel in golf is so
Hmm.
different where I get players every single day during lessons where I'm like, exaggerate, feel X 5 times more than you think that yet you need to. And they do it and I'll show it to them like that's the swing I just made. I can't believe that's where it is. I feel like I'm doing it so much more.
Hmm.
So from an exaggeration standpoint, it is huge.
Okay, great. That's awesome. We'll record those swings, guys. It's gonna help. Plus, it's fun to like document the journey. Like I
For
love
sure.
seeing my swing 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like it's fun to see. And sometimes you, like you said, kind of bottle up the magic and be like, oh, that's what I was doing. All
Yeah.
right. So next one was early extension I had. Did you want to go into anything else first, or did that work for you?
No, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So everybody does that drill or thinks they should, where they're trying to like do the rotate. Oh man, almost broke my hand. They're trying to do all this rotation. But your video that we'll show right now shows that actually early extension is the only reason you might be hitting the golf ball. So what is kind of the secret to understanding early extension? Because I feel like most of us are not on the same page with it.
Yeah, for sure. So I will start by saying it is not always a bad thing. Like if you early extend a little bit and you hit the ball well, it is not a must fix. Like Scotty Scheffler is evidence of that.
Mm,
But for a lot of players that think the early extension is why they are hitting it bad, it is usually the symptom of something else earlier that is happening. So steepness is a huge one where if you get the club out in front of you and you're a little too steep, the early extension a lot of times acts as a club shallower. So if I get to a point where this club is, I'm going to choke down on this and I'll take out a light in the office. But if I get to a point where the club is steepening, kind of pitching out in front of me, and I keep my hips back and I keep my head down and I return, that club continues even further out in front of me. I miss the ball every
You'd
single
miss the
time.
ball, right?
Right. So if that club is pitching out in front of us, early extension almost allows us to hit the brakes and pull this club to the inside. So you may get some flippier hooks or some blocks from getting jammed up, but it is the early extension that's allowing any of the good shots that you do hit to happen because you would miss it if you stayed in posture. So the priority is you have to get the club to shallow first, then you can start to stay in that posture a little bit better. Posture like
So just to simplify it, you're too steep on the downswing, and early extension is the reason you're even able to hit the ball for not like for a lot of people.
Exactly. Yep. It's going to be the it's you're missing the shallowing piece, so your body
Hmm.
just athletically responds and throws it in on the downswing to try to get that club underneath and back behind you a little bit.
It's fascinating what the body does.
It's crazy. Yep.
Like you said, we're aimed 40 yards right, and it's like, oh, we got to pull this thing just to find where we're looking here, but we're aimed there. Same thing with this. Like, oh, there's so many players. I feel like that. I have definitely early extended for as long as I can. I used to get so much hate on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm like, whatever. I'm a plus handicap, not that bad. Clearly I can always get better, but that is one where I think I was trying to fix the early extension a lot too. Now that I think about it, but I always had an inside takeaway and probably got steep. So if I did fix the early extension, it wasn't going to go very well.
For sure. Yeah, and you can time it up and you can get to a point where it's playable for sure. But yeah, if you notice that you're steep, do not waste your time pushing the hips back and keeping the chest down and exaggerating that. It's not going to get you anywhere. Yeah.
And so when you say steep, someone records their swing from down the line, and they see kind of the club on the downswing, kind of like past their mid like bicep or mid upper arm, where it's kind of like,
Yeah. So by the time you get to about waist high, somewhere in that ballpark, you want to see that club falling close to your forearm. So steep
mhm,
would be kind of up in this position where that club is starting to work a little bit more out in front of us. So that's where that early extension will kind of drop it onto that forearm for us.
mhm,
But I will say video angle is huge with that because if you get the camera too low and you have that club in a really good position, as soon as we're looking at that from a lower point, it's going to make the
mhm.
shaft look much steeper than it is. And if that camera is way up high, you can be steep, but the way you're looking at it makes that shaft appear lower than it is. So that camera's got to be right around mid torso high to get a good accurate look at that, pretty much right down that toe line, so you don't mask it at all.
Okay, so camera mid torso and then in line with your hands. Is that kind of
Yeah,
the
I like that. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think I've made that mistake before. Even the one I sent you was like not very good. I just was kind of
Right.
filming and I was like, damn it. All right, cool. So anything else with early extension? I mean, obviously that's kind of a symptom of usually an inside takeaway or something else that's making you get steep, but anything else you had about early extension?
So the club face can be another one. The club face being a little open, I will see players early
Hmm.
extend just because you early extend, it stalls the body out and it allows the hands to get a little bit more active. So it can act as a way for you to kind of hit the brakes and give yourself time to flip the club face. So that's one where if I am in a position where face is fairly open, even if that club is a little shallow, if you would never try to hit a golf ball with the face open like this. So as I
Hmm.
start to early extend a little bit, install the body, it gives us a little bit
Hmm.
more time to get a little scoopier with it, which can give that face some time to square itself up. So the open club face is another big one I'll see.
Okay. And open club faces that tend to be from a weak grip or inside takeaway or a little bit of both?
I would say it's either I would say the biggest three I'll see is that grip is a little bit on the weaker side. Players may have a little bit of a rolling tendency on the way
Mm-hmm.
back, which can roll that toe a little open and get that club working a little flatter on the way back. And then cupping of that left wrist, or that for a right-handed player, or lead
Mm-hmm.
wrist, that's something that's typically going to get that toe to start to work a little bit more down on you. So those are going to be kind of the big three.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think that'll help people. So maybe early extension isn't the issue for a lot of players. It might be something to fix, but let's kind of get everything else cleaned up.
Yeah, I can count on one hand the number of players I've came across in the last 4 years that only had to worry about the early extension and not something else
Really?
before. Yeah, it's not very common.
Wow, that is wild. Okay, that's great to know. All right, the next up I had takeaway. Was that a good spot to keep going?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So you had a really good video here. This one I think was December of last year, and you kind of have like we'll show it here, but you have basically an alignment stick that you put on kind of getting the right plane. I feel like takeaway, like people are always trying to fix their downswing, but to me, again, not a swing guru like you, but usually the backswing is the reason the downswing is what it is. So, do you feel like most players are going inside, and that's why we're hitting the dreaded slice and too many fades?
Yeah, that's the case for a lot of players. Yes, I will say as I've coached more and more, I go after it less aggressively than I used to because I used to
Okay.
just like the look of it. But now it's gotten to the point where a player rolls it to the inside, but they manage it well to the top of backswing and it moves well in transition. I don't
Okay.
worry about it purely for aesthetics, but like you said, it is a very common kind of chain of events where a player will roll that club very inside. It'll get very flat on the way back. When you get overly flat on the way back, you can't go any flatter. You don't really have anywhere
Mm.
to go but up and over. So that is the one case where I will worry about it. And I love that video just because it gives you that alignment stick behind the ball, gives you some kind of guideline to kind of follow to make sure that club isn't ripping to the inside immediately. So that can be a good one to kind of checkpoint yourself to make sure you don't overdo it or underdo it.
Yeah, so this is another good way to use an alignment aid, right? It's like $5. And if you're not using these, so I'm just watching the video here. So you basically put, for those of you guys that aren't watching, again, check it out on YouTube. But if you're just doing the audio, you have the alignment rod directly, what is it, maybe a foot behind the ball, but in line with the ball. And then you're kind of looking at takeaway once the club is parallel to the ground.
Exactly. Yeah, looking at that takeaway up to parallel to the ground as far as where that club head is. So eventually that club head will kind of pass it, but it's all from that player's point of view. When you're looking down, you should see that club head following that alignment stick while keeping the hands inside. The one way that I would say you can cheat that one is if you sort of shove your hands away, but roll, that can get the club head
Mm,
working inside a little bit. So if you get
okay.
in here and you start shoving the hands away from the body, but we start to add a rolling move, it can make it look like that club is getting into a decent spot, but we've kind of disconnected the hands and rolled to get here. So I would just make sure we're keeping those hands low and inside as we do it.
Okay, so hands low and inside, and you want the club face to be on line with that. That's what we're trying to shoot for. It's not the actual shaft. We're looking at the club face on in line with that alignment
Exactly.
stick.
Yep. You want to watch that club head follow that thing right down that
Okay,
line. Stick.
perfect. Yeah, that's really good. I like this video a lot. I don't know how you film all these, but how do you get the player's perspective? Did you have someone like over you doing it, or
Now
what?
that was me. A couple takes just with
Okay.
the left hand trying to do it one handed only.
I love it, man. You got to get crafty out there. I did you ever see that old Tiger video where he had like the essentially a GoPro of 99 like on his helmet or on his hat, and he was able to like you were seeing it from his point of view?
Yeah, I know. I need to get those meta glasses. I feel like that would
Oh
make life
yeah.
way easier.
That's a good write-off, right? Come on,
Yeah,
citizens expense.
exactly.
So cool, man. Anything else with the takeaway that you feel like? I know it is, like you said, I think that was a really good way you described it to a chain of events. It's like one thing leads to the next. So anything else you see with the takeaway?
That's going to be the biggest. I would say the hands shoving away and or not hinging enough, both of which tend to get that club a little bit too far low into the inside. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's a good starting point.
Do you see a lot of players actually go too far outside?
Not many. I would say if I do see them go too far outside, it's from the hands kind of shoving the club to the outside.
Hmm.
Where you look at like a Matthew Wolf style where it's like very
Yeah.
hand and club out. I don't run into that nearly as much. Usually if that club is getting outside, it's from those hands kind of shoving it out there.
Okay. Sweet. All right. Let's see. So I like kind of going through each part of it here. Next one we had was wrist hinge, obviously something I was working on you with. And I feel like this is one where there's a lot of like, wrist trainers and hack motion. There's a lot of stuff out there to like try and get this. So what should the wrist do without having to get into the medical terms?
Yeah, so this will play along nicely with takeaway, where it's I think you will hear many different coaches have differing opinions as far as like should you turn first, then hinge the wrist, should you wrist
Hmm.
hinge first, then turn. Kind of like both that happen fairly close together. I think it's a little bit more comfortable to kind of feel like you hinge as you turn versus making it feel very timing based where you have to do one or the other first.
So you like
Um,
them together. Okay.
yeah, I think it's a little bit easier for players to understand. Where if you going back to that alignment stick drill, because a lot of players like to feel like a one piece takeaway, where they feel like the wrists don't do anything and they just turn the chest. If you do
Hmm.
that, the arms are typically going to work very low and around. So
Hmm.
the way I'll explain it to players is the golf swing is basically a combination of horizontal movements and vertical movements up and down. So if you get here and all you do is turn, that's very horizontal. Usually that club wants to wrap around us. So the
Hmm.
wrist hinge acts as a vertical to kind of offset it and keep the club in front of us. So that wrist hinge is really what's keeping that club down that alignment stick from that last drill we were talking about. Um, and I know we were just talking about this a little bit in your lesson, and we've chatted a little bit before this. But I like to kind of think about the trail hand. So for a right-handed player, we're thinking about that right hand. For a lefty, you're thinking about the left hand.
Hmm.
And I like to think about that wrist just working up and back slightly. So if we're in here, I don't want that this thumb going directly upwards because that's
Hmm.
going to typically result in this lead wrist wanting to cup a little bit. I like to think about that back thumbnail almost working up and back at a 45-degree angle, somewhere in through here. That's going to give you a nice little set to the wrist in this direction, but you're also working a little bit upwards to get that club working vertically. So it's going to keep lead wrist flat as that trail thumb goes up and back very slightly. I think that's the easiest way you can think about it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So what I was doing, and if you're okay with me putting my video up there too,
Yeah.
I can kind of show that. But yeah, basically you had shown that I was getting too inside with it because I wasn't hinging the wrist enough, and then that was leading to some contact issues. So it's more. So that's what I was trying to feel like when I would go hit range after it. I was trying to go like not pushing it out like we talked about because obviously we don't want the club going too far, but it was more it feels like left hand down to me, kind of going towards that left foot, but then it's more. I'm glad you also clarified too that you're rotating your body while making the wrist motion. So, like you said, horizontal and vertical. That actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Good. Yeah, no, I love that kind of analogy there. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, like I don't have issues with thinking about the lead hand doing it and kind of pressing down. You just need to make sure you don't start kind of lunging the entire left
Yeah.
side down towards it. It's more so primarily in the wrist, not kind of entire body lunging down into that grip where that head starts diving down and forward.
So, what are some of the side effects if you're not making the right wrist hinge? Like, what are some like if you're cup too much or bow too much, or what are some shot shapes or contact issues you'll see?
Yep. So the I would say a lot of this goes back to that inside takeaway to over the top downswing
Hmm.
pattern that we were talking about, where if you have no hinge, that club is typically going to want to wrap around us a little bit. So if I try to shorten this club up and not take anything out, if all I do is turn and don't have any wrist hinge, that club gets very low and back behind me. From here, I have to do something to get the club vertical. So what a lot of players will do if the wrists don't get involved is they will get here and let the elbows start to carry the club up to the top, and
Mm.
that's where you get a lot of elbow breakdown. And you'll see all kinds of things from there. You'll see elbows break down and club work very steep. You'll see club get inside, elbows break down, and then you'll see some players really try to reroute it and get it underneath where you can get a lot of two-way misses. And then if you're not hinging, it becomes a little bit more of a rolling move that can kind of lead to that same cascade of events where that club gets too flat and behind us.
There's always something in this game. Just
Always, always.
okay. So that actually, I got a lot of clarification myself on that, just because I feel like you do think is it just do I rotate first or is it hinge first? So it's good to know you think that they should be together. You said you don't have any wrist trainers or anything like that specifically that you like.
So I have not used Hack Motion personally, but I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, it's nifty.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about Hack Motion, but I have not used it myself, so can't really attest to it. I personally like the Pro Sender quite a bit. It is great for your trail wrist, and it pretty much allows you to hinge up and back and fit your wrist into a mold, so it kind of takes the guesswork out of it.
Mm.
So that's
Does
going
that
to be
go
a
on your
very
lead wrist or does that go on the trail one? I can't
that's going
remember.
to be all
Oh,
trail
that's all
wrist.
trail.
So
Okay.
yeah, right wrist for a right-handed player, and that's a good one because if you start hinging a little, basically for those that are watching, it's kind of a mold that fits on back of the wrist. So you're
Hmm.
setting yourself into it. So if you get too vertical with that wrist hinge, you're going to kind of miss that mold and not fit your hand to it. So that's a great one.
Okay, great. That's awesome, man. Anything else? I feel like we're getting close to the top of the backswing. Any other things that you've seen or want to mention at all?
Um, no, I think we keep rolling right
Okay,
along.
perfect. So the other ones I had were more short game related. So any other videos that you had or any other issues that you wanted to kind of tackle with top of the swing, downswing? One other question I had too is weight transfer because I feel like
Mhm.
everybody, always thinks they got to open the hips, but like where does the weight transfer is it shift your weight then open the hips? Because I feel like if you just think open your hips, you're going to spin out of it.
Yeah, and so that's a big topic for sure. So one video, um, that I would have a lot of players reference back to recently. I believe the title is like "Why You Get No Power and Can't Shallow the Club" or something like that.
Hmm.
It was posted sort of end of June, early July timeframe. And basically, that's talking about some spinal tilt set up on the face on view and learning to rotate properly or coil back behind the ball. And a lot of that weight transfer starts with the backswing. So if you watch pretty much, no, I'm not going to say all because everybody will search and find one person that
Hmm.
doesn't fit the mold. But if you look at a lot of elite players, you're going to see that the hips are actually starting to move towards the target before the upper body is finished working up to the top. So if I get in here, you're going to see, like, you slow Rory down, for example, that as the arms are finishing the backswing, the hips are actually starting to move forward ever so slightly. So that weight sort of peaks on that back foot by the time that your hands are about chest high, and then it starts moving towards that front side again. So I would say that is sort of the setup for the downswing, where if you get to a point where you start kind of reverse pivoting and getting in through here, and all of
Hmm.
the weight sort of rolls to the outside border of your back foot, you have nothing to push off against. So that's where I'll see
Hmm.
a lot of players kind of hang back on it. So that is where the setup allows you to rotate effectively, going back to the beginning of this video where we've got our posture, we've got our feet alignments that can help us turn as effectively as you can, which if we are turning correctly, that is kind of getting those hips moving forward. And from there, it's sort of a blend of rotation plus weight transfer. It's not really one or the other. It's
Hmm.
kind of both. One feel that I like for players as far as that goes is almost thinking about through impact. I want you to get your belt buckle facing the target and over top of your front heel. So if you get to the top and you just have too much slide, you get your belt buckle over your front foot, but it's not
Hmm.
facing the target. If you get here and you just spin out of the shot a little too much, you get your belt buckle facing the target, but it's not over your front heel. So a good feel can be to get that belt buckle over the heel facing the target. And that's a good way to get those hips to clear, but also open and shift together.
Oh man, that's actually a really good visual. I think everyone should be wearing a belt out there, so they should be able to put that together.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like I don't know. To me, for the longest time, maybe up until a few years ago, I always definitely was, hearing maybe it's just like old school advice, but yeah, you got to fire the hips, fire the hips. But it's like if you fire the hips without transferring your weight, you're gonna hit some nasty slices.
Exactly. Yeah. Usually gets that body just rotating and firing open too quickly, and the hands launch in front of you almost every time.
Okay, great. Anything else with the full swing? I want to talk a little bit about your game too, because you're not just a great coach, you're a fantastic player. But before getting into the short game stuff, any other full swing topics you wanted to cover?
I think that's good. I think that's enough.
Okay.
That the players already get enough thoughts, so we don't need to add any more to
Yeah,
that.
that is totally true. And so that actually is a good starting point to what I wanted to ask you about your game because you're a +5, and I mean that's like 0.001% of amateur golfers, probably more than that or less than that. So you have all these swing thoughts we just covered, but you said that when you're playing your best, you're not typically thinking much about the swing.
Yeah, not a whole lot. It's I kind of know my tendencies right now, where it's probably more than people care to know, but hands tend to get very deep or very back behind me,
Hmm.
and just historic, and it just comes from as a junior, I did not hit the ball very far, so I tried to just play this big slinging draw to get as much distance as I could to try to keep up.
I can
And
relate.
as you get older and stronger, and you throw some speed on that, it usually is a nightmare. Where the worst feeling is getting stuck, as I'm sure you know, it is not a fun place to be. So I've worked on so many things as far as getting my hands more in front of me and trying to rotate the body harder. And what it boiled down to for me was trying to hit a fade. It's like
Hmm.
after playing for so long, if I try to hit a fade, it pretty much gets all those thoughts accomplished without really thinking about it. And that's something I've adopted with coaching as well, where I try to keep it a little bit more simple, where it's kind of like one static change, or meaning like one setup change at a time and one swing thought maximum. So once you're
Okay.
out there, it's three or four swing thoughts. Even if they might be the right thoughts, you can't think about that many things at one time. So it's kind of like put all your effort into one area, knowing it may not be perfect. Once you get that down, you can start adding some other ones once that's dialed in. But yeah, the fewer thoughts, the better.
That's fantastic. I like how you said one setup thought and one swing thought.
Yeah, that's kind of that's where I like to kind of peak it at. So
Hmm.
I will deviate from that at times if there's not a way of getting around it, or there's sometimes you have to go after two things at once to kind of offset each other.
Hmm.
Setup, I don't mind if there's a little bit more going on, just because it's kind of once you're set, you're ready to rip it, and you don't need to
Hmm.
think about the swing at all. But in general, yeah, it's kind of the blueprint I like to at least try to follow.
And so for a swing thought too, you said hit a fade. It wasn't like do XYZ. So like I agree, having one swing thought max is great, but it sounds like you're making it very not technical. Like you're just trying
Yeah,
to almost have like a target or like a feel versus a specific mechanical motion.
exactly. Yep. So I like to so personally I like to almost think back from the target to my golf swing, where I know my tendency is to get stuck inside. So what are my misses when I do that? I hit high right blocks and I hit flippier hooks. All of them
Hmm.
start out to the right and either stay right or quick hook. So for me, I think a lot about start line, where I know I need to feel like this ball is starting left of my target to allow my body to clear and get my hands in
Hmm.
front of my body. So hitting a lot on TrackMan, they have that nice center line right down the center of the
Hmm.
screen. So really my only swing feel when I practice is start the ball left of that center line, and that sort of forces me to get my body clearing. So that's where that
Hmm.
kind of hit a fade feel comes from. Is I got to the point where I would hit so many balls in there on the off season. It was just like if they're starting left of that, I know my path was going to be good, and
Hmm.
usually I have pretty good face control, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of curvature on it. It would be pretty neutral.
I imagine you're hitting quite a few golf balls in there in the winter in Virginia.
Not as many as you think because I hate getting mechanical. As soon as I
Oh,
start
okay.
seeing too many numbers, I
Yeah.
start thinking too much. So
Okay.
when I'm hitting it well, it's probably the opposite of what it's a true do as I say, not as I do for any students listening. But when I'm hitting it well, I really don't hit golf balls. All I do is go play. I'm like
I
I don't
love it.
want any of those swing thoughts. I just want to go score.
I love it. What are a couple things you do when you're playing well? Do you play one shot shape or do you try and shape it?
I would say I play one shot shape with certain clubs. So like with my driver, I always hit a cut. With my irons, it's fairly neutral.
Hmm.
So I guess the answer would be no, it's not the same shot shape with everything, but I don't try to shape it. It's like my driver, I hate missing left, so I've got the loft knocked down, I've got it the
Hmm.
angle flattened out, I've got the face open, and I hit a fade every single time, unless I toe it on accident and it turns over. But I don't try to hit a draw on purpose with the driver. And then irons are pretty much fairly neutral. I don't care if the pin is back left, back right, front left, front right. I hit the same exact shot or try to at least, unless there is an object in the way.
Do you change trajectories much?
Yes. So that is one that I do change a little bit just because Virginia Beach is fairly windy.
Mm.
And I hit the ball very high. So I will tend to club down and get that weight leaning a little forward and hit some 3/4 punchier shots just to keep it out of the wind a little bit. But yeah, the
Okay.
actual shape left or right, I really don't try to manipulate a whole lot.
What about for like a, let's say 10, 15 handicap? You think they should be trying to change trajectory much or just playing one shot shape as well?
I would recommend the one shot shape for sure. I
Hmm.
do think the trajectory is important to develop. I would say as a 10 or 15 handicap, you're probably just better off clubbing down. Like say you have a 150 shot, which is usually a 9 iron. I would say instead of really trying to hit a sting or anything crazy, maybe you just club down to a 7 iron and hit like a
Hmm.
3/4 shot.
Hmm.
But I think trajectory is important to learn how to control, but shot shaping, I don't recommend trying
I
to
just,
try to
I,
mix that in.
I love to hear it from a plus five because Scott
Yeah.
Fawcett been on the show a bunch. Plus five obviously preaches that inside Decade Golf, and it's one of the biggest mistakes I made until 2022 when I learned Decade. I mean, I was hitting fades, trying to hit and draw. I mean, just doing stupid stuff because I thought that was what you're supposed
Yeah.
to do. Because you hear people still on the, you hear the announcers, oh, he's got to draw it on this one, oh, he's got to fade it on this one. It's like, no, he doesn't.
No, yeah, exactly. You use slopes to your advantage if you can, but I'd rather try to become elite at one thing than try to become decent at a whole bunch of things.
Wicked smart approved right there. I
Yeah.
love it. Awesome, man. Let's get into the bunker video you did because that went super viral. Didn't have like over 1 million views.
Was that the recent one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah, with the face aligner.
that was absolutely wild. So we'll have it on screen here. I've had my own issues in the bunkers over the years. Probably needed to watch this video about 5 years ago. You're a little late, Bryce, but talk to us about the sand because the stats. I mean, the reason my second book is like 550 pages because I have so many stats in there, and I'm just trying to help people, reset their expectations. Amateurs just aren't very good from the sand, even if you're a scratch golfer or better. I mean, I think scratch golfers get up and down 50% of the time, not even, and pros only get it up and down from the bunker 50% of the time. So it's a hazard technically
For
for a
sure.
reason. So what are some common mistakes? Because this video I thought was like very simple, and again, it comes back to what we talked about with the full swing. If your setup's good, the swing makes it kind of takes care of itself.
Definitely. And yeah, that we'll get to that video. I think that is, I don't want to say advanced, but I think that's like starting to get past that
Okay.
like basics level.
Yeah.
I would say from a basic standpoint, you have to swing hard and you have to hit sand. So it's assuming there's some amount of sand in the
I was gonna
bunker.
say, have you been to Arizona much?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we'll assume there's a little bit of sand there, and we can get to different sand types. But I see so many players that try to pick the golf ball out of it.
Hmm.
So it's the issue is if you try to pick the golf ball, you have to swing fairly easy at it because if I'm trying to hit the ball 15 yards, it's not going to be a very big swing. So if you take a smaller swing, don't have a ton of speed on it, and then you catch any amount of sand, you're going to chunk it. The ball is going to go nowhere.
Hmm.
So you have to keep the speed up. Keeping weight forward is another big one. I see a lot of players try to lean back to lift that ball up into the air, which will cause the club to bottom out too soon.
This is a
So
good
if
point.
it,
I want to pick your brain on this. So should
yeah,
you actually see yourself like your weight? And, I looked at some of my old videos and I feel like I would actually be so far forward that it made me too steep. So is it like you want to feel your weight, but if you were watching it on video, you wouldn't really be able to tell too much?
I would say a little in between. Like I don't want you getting 100% of your weight forward. It's not a
Hmm.
fairly standard bunker shot, but I like to see the chest just leaning forward just a little bit to the point where
Okay.
you feel like you're like 60-40 favoring the front side, not so massively stacked here.
Hmm.
You have nowhere to go but back, but just favoring that front side just a little bit, swing hard and hit sand. So if you're trying to get height and you're trying to get spin, you need speed. So that's where opening the face and hitting sand basically are going to act as softeners so that ball doesn't go too far. Because if we swing hard and we hit all ball with a square face, the ball is going to go miles. But if you open the face, it's going to come out softer. If you hit sand, that's going to slow things down a little bit. So it's a good blend where you can swing hard, hit sand. That's going to almost get it out every single time, but not have it go too far to at least limit the damage if you do get in there.
Hmm. Okay. So how far back do you like to tell players? Inch, two, three?
About, I would say about two is
Mm-hmm.
kind of ballpark.
Do you tend to look at that spot? Because like when I realized I was looking at the ball too much and I catch a lot of them thin, so I kind of changed my. I think it's because I can't see out of my right eye as well. So like I feel like I was kind of like I don't know if you knew that, but I kind of have to like look. It almost tilts my head a little bit because I
Right.
have to like kind of see it. But I've found that looking at the sand versus the ball seems to have helped my contact. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think there's a right answer to it. I think it's whatever works for you. Um, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't even know without doing it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, it's like I don't really think about it. I know I don't look at the sand specifically though. Like, I think I'm looking more
So you're
like
still
kind of
looking at the ball?
yeah, more like back of golf ball.
Hmm.
But I would say if somebody struggles with hitting too much ball first and they struggle to hit the sand, um, a good drill can be just line up like five balls in a line in a bunker, take an alignment stick or back of a grip or something or a club head, draw a line in the sand about 2 inches behind, and just kind of run down that line, trying to thump it right on the line about 2 inches
Hmm.
behind it over and over again to get used to that. But yeah, I have no issues if you look behind it and like to look at that sand and it works for you, don't change it.
Okay. So with I feel like we got like kind of a good emphasis on it. Obviously you talk about open in the face and I think that's where that more advanced video comes in, but
Yep.
it's like when I grew up, 20 years ago playing, I mean, that was like the first thing you taught in the bunker is like open the face, so you got to aim left, otherwise it's not going to work. And now you see guys playing square almost close sometimes depending on fluffy sand. So
Yep.
why is it so important to kind of set up more square?
Yeah, so that is, I was taught the same exact thing. It's like if you're going to open up the face, it's going to aim you right, so you have to aim the feet left to kind of offset them, and it'll meet in the middle. But typically, if we get that stance very open, it tends to steepen that swing path a little bit, which can make the club dig, especially in softer sand. And another thing that I've found is as that stance gets overly open, I do feel like it's harder to keep that weight forward. I feel like as that stance
Mm-hmm.
gets open, it almost pushes us back a little bit. Where when you get that stance closed, it almost makes it a little easier to stay stacked and loaded over that front side a little bit more. So I like it more for weight, but also it can help shallow out the swing plane a little bit. If we have a ton of sand, we don't want that club to dig, or it's just going to get sucked underneath of the ball and we're going to fat it. So if we have that face open and we close the stance off just a little bit, it can allow that swing plane to be a little bit flatter, which can help that club glide through the ball, through the sand a little bit easier and not chunk it as much.
Hmm.
But the big point of that video is lowering the hands a little bit and not changing these stance because that's going to change the lie angle of the club. So if we get in here and we start to lower the hands, that shaft is going to start to that shaft is going to lower, and that is going to help pull that alignment a little bit more to that left side. So we can close the stance, open the face, but by lowering the hand, it pulls that alignment left for a right-handed player, which the low hands is just another thing that will allow us to slide through it a little bit better. So it has been a game changer when there is soft sand to slide under that ball a little
Yeah.
bit cleaner.
So when I see soft sand, I think kind of closed stance. So I'm doing it right.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So I would almost think of it as, yeah, soft sand. We want to get a little bit more shallow. So we're going to close the stance. We're going to
Hmm.
skim through that sand a little bit more with a wide open face, utilize the bounce of the club a little bit more. And then when that sand is a little bit more Arizona like, or it's a little bit more compact, that's where I will. not close the stance even more or open it massively, but we'll just get fairly neutral with it and
Hmm.
square that face up a little bit. Just because if you have that leading edge here filleted open and we're trying to dig through the sand, it's you're never going to dig. You're going to hit the middle of the ball every time. So I'll square it a
Hmm.
little bit so that sharper edge can dig into what little sand is there. I won't decelerate, but I also won't swing quite as long with the backswing where I can't generate as much speed. But a lot of times when you're in concrete bunkers, it's just damage control. You got to get out and kind of limit the damage.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was playing. I don't know if you probably didn't play out Grand Canyon University when we were out here, but we have the Phoenix City. It's 3 days, three courses, and the first day is there. And I was playing with a really good college kid. He got in. There was a bunker short, right, and then there was a bunker long left that intersected with a different hole, so it's like a shared bunker. He got in two and left with a nine, and he didn't understand. He like didn't realize how much you had to not open because he kept opening it and he just kept
Yeah,
stolling it back and forth. And then after the third time, I think he finally decided to not do it, but then he chunked one in. And I'm like, oh my, I felt so bad because I've been
that's
there,
brutal.
you
Yeah.
know? So it's like, so concrete sand, you're thinking more square face, less power. Do you change ball position or anything?
I will usually not play it quite as far up. Usually I'll
Okay.
move that ball, not necessarily center, but like just maybe ball front of center
Hmm.
in a lot of cases. I have a question for you though. What bounce do you play on your wedges? Have you gone to like a lower lofted or a lower
I
degree
have
bounce
my
with the firm
lob
sand?
wedges 8.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like that. I think it's the T grind from Vokey.
Hmm.
I think it's 4 degrees, which is nice out of the firm sand, but you go play
Yeah.
anywhere where there is sand and it's brutal.
I was gonna say I actually used to have a 4, and then I was playing just enough courses here that weren't like firm, and then man, I made the switch, and I was like, wow, I just got a lot better just from the equipment side of things. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you're like if I was really good and I had all these different courses I played, I probably would have a 4. But yeah, the 8, I feel like 8 to 10 is pretty good for most players. Like, do you what's your wedge setup?
Yeah, I'm not an equipment guy. I like have to look at my clubs half the
Oh,
time. So
good, good.
they the 60 in my bag right now is 10. And
Okay.
yeah, I like the 8 to 10 range because I feel like it's fairly versatile where it's like you can square it up and add a little shaft lean and take a little bit
Hmm.
off of it to sharpen the leading edge, or you can fillet it open and make it act a little bit bouncier. So
Hmm.
it's more versatile where once you get the 4, you're kind of stuck in that low range.
Yeah, okay. I also like you said damage control too. Like you're not only technically sound, but you're always thinking wicked smart out there. So hopefully people are listening. Like if you're in a bad bunker, it's not a time to try and get cute and then you get double or worse. So it's like you're like you said,
Exactly.
having the right mindset. When you go into a bunker, do you have a specific routine or any kind of thought you're trying to, take with you?
Biggest thing is once I get in it, I am using my feet a ton to kind of assess what that sand feels like, where I will
Hmm.
dig the feet in like an obnoxious amount to get a feel for how soft it is and how much ground I have underneath. Because there's times where you may step on it and it feels soft, but you dig in and you realize that it's cart path underneath and you really only have about this much sand. So you can't use that super soft technique. But for me, it really is just kind of focusing on landing spot and digging that feed in to kind of help me decide what technique I'm going to use with it.
Bunker masterclass right there. Absolutely love it. All right. I had a putting video as well because we got to stop three putting so much. This was a good
Yeah.
video that you did. You talk about speed drills a lot, and you have some really good drills just on your channels and stuff. What are your kind of thoughts? Do you get like I guess actually even of the 3,700 lessons, how many of those have been putting?
Not a ton. A lot of it is full swing. So
Hmm.
I don't know if I can count on one hand how many like putting specific lessons I've gotten
Really?
from like just one off, but there's a subscription option on there where players can send more
Mm.
videos per month. And that those are the players that will really dive into the short game and dive into those things. But if people are just buying one lesson, everybody wants to do full swing. So
Yeah.
that's what everyone wants to fix. But I think the short game. I don't know what you found from your experience, but I feel like short game is where you can transform someone game and take them from a 25 to a 15 just by aiming smarter around the course with full swing and not even
Hmm.
touching the swing, but getting rid of double chip or flubbing chips and hitting one on and three putts and things like that. You can see there's so much low hanging fruit with short game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's like my first two books is just like there's a whole short game section and then a whole putting section because it's that's what kind of the reason I started all this brand because I'm like, man, nobody talks about this stuff. And like that's when I was in high school, I remember I shot 74 one time and I hit two greens in regulation. And I was like, that's when I really learned like, oh
Yeah,
man, you could just get that short game out and it wears your competitors down too because they're like,
big
Jesus, this
time.
guy's all over the course,
Yeah,
especially.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, especially juniors that don't hit the ball super far. Like that's kind of the camp I fell into as a kid,
Hmm.
and it was great because my short game became filthy, and then I got distance, and then I was like, okay, this is a good blend. So
Totally.
it's nice, but I mean, especially for players out there trying to break 90, it's like you can go out there and hit zero greens in regulation, but if you have a go-to chip shot and you make one 8-footer around, you can go make 17 bogeys and one par and break 90. Like you just have
Ah,
to not hit it into stupid spots.
well said. What do you think are some biggest amateur golfer putting mistakes?
I would say it's hard where it's like set
It
up
could
in
be
terms.
practice, it could be short putts, long putts, trying to make it, like anything you think.
Yeah, so I think that trying to make it is a huge one where it's like if I have a 40 footer, that is not a putt you are trying to make. You are trying to
Hmm.
two putt that. So I think the notion of if you leave a putt short, it's a bad putt is a terrible thought where it's like if I have a 40 footer, I would sign up to leave every 40 footer I hit for the rest of my life 1 foot short and move on. It's like
Hmm.
if you're hitting them hard enough to get every single one past the hole, you're going to hit a lot of those 6 to 8 feet by and three putt which does not make up for the one or two that you're going to make. So I think trying to make putts outside of that like 25-foot range is not the best thought just because you're going to end up three putting a lot more than you're going to make them. So it's two putting from outside 25 feet is your friend for sure. Which is kind of where that video comes into play to help with speed control.
Yeah.
And it's everybody has different routines. Like you look at Cam Smith and it's like zero practice strokes, step up and just be an athlete and let it rip.
Yeah, he's
Um,
wild.
yeah, I could not do that. It's I need something to kind of help me gauge how far that's going to be. So a few things I'll do is I like to break long putts up into twos or threes or kind of half
Hmm.
and thirds, where it's kind of like okay, I know for the first part of this putt it's going to go uphill slightly, the back half is going to go downhill slightly, so it's going to kind of net equal and play flat. Or if it's really uphill and only slightly downhill, it just helps me know like okay, I need to play this like it's slightly uphill the whole way type of thing. So breaking reads up into pieces and then taking practice strokes, looking at the hole, which is one I've posted about a ton. But any other sport we do, it's more reactionary, where if we're
Yeah.
throwing a football to somebody running a route or shooting a basketball, you've never once caught a basketball in a pickup game and been like, okay, I'm going to put a 15-foot jump shot technique on this. It's like, get
Hmm.
it, see, react. And putting is the one where we don't look at the target at all. We look at it and then we're right back down. So I like taking practice strokes, looking at the hole where it's not mechanical. I'm not taking a stroke, resetting, taking a stroke, resetting. It's
Hmm.
purely head up, just kind of letting that putter flow a couple times, just to kind of let yourself link up how hard you need to hit that. Because I see, as far as mistakes go, players get over a putt and they'll just take these monstrous putting strokes or practice strokes from 12 feet, and it's like
Hmm.
you're standing off to the edge of the green. It's like I mean they're going to hit that double the distance they need to, and sure enough, they get up there and blow it by. Where if they would just look up, their body would feel that's a little hard and kind of slow it down a touch.
Yeah, it's amazing what the subconscious can do if you give it the right instructions.
For sure. Yeah. So
I'm
it's
curious.
not.
It's just like it's one of those things though where the mind ruins putting. Like I had Dr. Izzy Justice on, who's really like a neuroscientist, definition of wicked smart, and he's talking about he's like putting should be easier for most of us because it's you don't have to be strong, you don't have to do all the things you need to do to hit 400 or 350-yard drives or whatever. Like it's one of those things though that our mind gets in the way the most. And
Absolutely.
and you're +5. You're I mean I don't even know what your lowest is. I feel like you've probably almost shot 59, right?
So believe it or not, 64 8 under is the
Okay.
lowest.
But I mean, most players would never even sniff that. So
Yeah.
you've gone low. You post, great scores all the time. You play some cool YouTube matches. We'll link to your YouTube channel as well. But like you know what it takes to go low. But I feel like the mind gets in the way once you start being like, oh man, I'm going low, or this is for birdie. So what do you do mentally on the greens to kind of keep calm when you're playing well?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was just putting myself in that situation as many times as I could, where it's like the
Hmm.
first time I got up to 18 T and I was 7 under, my hands were shaking. And now I've done it enough times where it's like, whatever. It's like it's another great round, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But I try to just keep the same routine every single time. It's like I get my read. I don't use a line on the ball personally.
Hmm.
I recommend it to a lot of people, but I like to play fast, and the amount of times that I would set a line, get over it, and feel that it's not right, and have to step off and readjust it drove me insane. So I don't use
Same.
it. But it is the routine's the same. I get my read, I walk in next to the ball, I look at the hole, take three practice strokes, looking at it, just kind of letting it flow, get over it, take a look back down, and rip it. So I don't
Mm.
just get over the ball and freeze and wait 30 seconds. It's like once I take that look and the head goes down, trigger is pulled. but I think the routine is the biggest thing. We just have to do the same thing over and over and over again.
Love it, man. You are absolutely crushing it. You should be full-time podcasting. I know you
Yeah.
got a lot of I know you got a lot of free time, but this is super helpful, man. I just had two last questions.
Yeah.
So I'm starting a YouTube series, or actually I already have it now, I guess, on how to become a +5 handicap. So I'm a
Yep.
+2.5 now. I'm trying to figure out, asking wicked smart people like you what I need to do. Obviously you're gonna help me out with the swing side of things. So anything you'd recommend that is some, obviously, whether it's posture, wrist, it could be other parts of the game, but anything you think would help kind of get me to that next level.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you need me to tell you about course management. I think you've had Fawcett on enough times to have plenty of knowledge there. It really comes down to just limiting mistakes, which I know is easier said than done and kind of falls under that course management side of things. But I would say you've got to bully par fives, take advantage of short fours, and then just make a ton of pars, which I know sounds like I'm just saying be better at golf, but it's one of the, like, there's not a secret. It's like the low rounds are typically very boring. It's like
Hmm.
you go knock it up next to par fives and two, or hit them in under regulation. You two putt those, or hit a good chip and make a putt under 8 feet, and then you just aim to a bunch of middle of greens and two putt a bunch of times. It's not, you don't have to go out there flag hunting and make 7 or 8 birdies to do it.
Yeah, I like
So
that. I think that's always a good reminder to hear. Like boring golf is good golf. I actually posted a Instagram thing yesterday. Like you should play, or 7 ways to be a boring golfer and shoot lower scores. And people are like, it always gets, like, I post it every month or so, and it goes viral. People love it, and then I get a few people who are like, just drink more. You're a loser. I'm going for all the
right.
hero shots. I'm like, well, you're probably shooting 90 every time. So
Exactly. It's like if you're out there for a good time and it's like you just want
totally.
that one shot to remember, like I'm never going to tell people not to go have fun.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're trying to break 90 and you've got 260 over the water through trees to go to a par five and two, probably shouldn't do it. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
but from a swing standpoint, just to kind of answer that even more, it's like I know we worked on some stuff, and the biggest thing for you was posture. Like we talked a lot
Hmm.
of posture work, and we talked a little bit about the swing, but take it in pieces. It's like even though we know there's other things that need work, I would
Hmm.
go play a couple rounds purely focusing on the posture only and get completely
Hmm.
comfortable with that. And once you get comfortable with that and it's thoughtless, then you add in one swing thought where you can kind of put all of your focus into one thing. But
Hmm.
pre-shot routine is huge for that, where it's like if I am working on the swing, I do all of my thinking behind the ball. And when I
Totally.
step up to it, I kind of just accept, like if I'm exaggerating it 200% in a rehearsal, by the time I go hit a ball, I'm probably going to actually exaggerate it like 5 to 10%. But as
Hmm.
long as it is just trending in the right direction, chase progress, not perfection, is probably the biggest thing.
Love it. Feel isn't real. That's for sure. I think
100%.
Tiger's always such a good example of that. When he's going to hit a fade, he's like, getting ready for it. And if he's going
Yeah,
to hit a draw, he's getting ready for it. But yeah, also glad you said that for everyone listening. If you are making swing changes, do it. And you're playing golf, do those things behind the ball, and then just play golf when you're over it.
exactly. Yep.
Love it. Cool, man. For the before getting into the last question, I know you got a lot of going on. You got the simulators, you got YouTube, you got TikTok. Where's the kind of the best place everyone should follow you, and how can they learn more about working with you?
Yeah, at Bryce Cope Golf is going to be the handle for Instagram and TikTok. YouTube, I believe, is the same, or just my name, Bryce Cope, will get you there. The YouTube is much more kind of like playing style, kind of like YouTube golf. Just kind of my escape from instruction to go have fun and play fun matches against people. But yeah, so all of those accounts are going to have links that will take you to online lessons on Skillist or in person if you're local, and that'll have everything in there.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we'll definitely link to it there. And I can't say you're playing YouTube golf though when you're shooting in the 60s. I mean, YouTube golf to me is, a guy shooting in the 80s. So you're
Yeah,
an advanced YouTube golfer. But
it's fun, man. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. It's congrats on all you've done, man. And I guess for the last question, I'm just curious, what's something you wish you would have known 4 years ago once you started that would make such a big impact in other players' games?
Yeah, as far as like swing thoughts go, or like mechanics go,
Could be
or from
absolutely
like,
anything.
yeah, I would say from a coaching standpoint, surround yourself with people that know more than you and be
Mm,
very open to learning. So I feel like maybe didn't wait too long. I got on it fairly early, but I wish right out of the gate I would have immediately hired a mentor like I have now, working with the guy Shaheen up in Montreal. He's helped me a ton. There's so many different courses out there and things like that. So if you are trying to become a swing coach, you
hmm.
don't know everything. I feel I have days where I'm like, man, I've got this down, and sure enough, the next day it's like a ton of tough things that are hard to fix. So it has a way of humbling you. So it is.
Uh-huh.
I'll always stay very open to learning more.
What about from a player's perspective?
From a player's perspective, I know we've talked about it a ton, but just to keep it simple, it's do not try to play golf swing on the course. I am a big fan of kind of like practice nines where you go out either on your own or close
Mm,
friends and you drop golf balls. And that's where if you do want to, if you have trouble getting it from range to course, you can go out and play, I will call them stress-free nines where you're hitting 2 or 3 tee shots and you're hitting multiple shots into greens and you're dropping balls
hmm.
on side slopes to see how they react, just to kind of experiment in a very low stress situation. But once you get out onto the course, play with what you got. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it around and perfect it on the range.
Love it, man. So many great ideas. Thanks so much for being back for part two and sharing so much wisdom and wishing you all the best, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.